conversation, this interaction is that I want all of us to feel empowered. Let us not think, we as science students, at the end of every interview, I'm so blessed that we were in so many different interviews in that precious room called the interview room and the private interview room. And it was a habit, it was a custom that at the end of the interview, Swami would say, Legandi, get up. And then we knew that that heavenly time with him had come to an end. And then he would say, Chesko, take namaskar. He would just do like this. And we knew, fortunately, over those years, we had got so aligned with him. And that alignment is beauty. That alignment is our life. That alignment is far more precious than our bank balances and our other achievements. And he used to gesture like this, Chesko. And we would dive at his feet in an orderly fashion, one after the other. We would kiss his feet. We would put our hands and our foreheads on his sacred feet. And then we would often be ready for the question he would ask. He say, Aim Kawali, what do you want? And, just through training, we would blabber. Literally today, when I think what I said, I would say, Swami, please give me bhakti. Swami, please give me shraddha. Please give me mukti. At different times, we shot off different words that we had heard, which were different concepts in our mind. And Swami used to smile. Sometimes he would put his hand on our head and say, sometimes, his answers also were mystical. Sometimes he would say, Bhakti undira niku kaninu chedam ledu. That is, you have bhakti, man. See, when he used to say Ra, means lovingly, like in India, we say, Kya yaar, Kya yaar, like that. In Telugu, we say, Bhakti undira. Are, you have bhakti, but you are not putting it into practice. Leverage it, use it, build on it. So, like that, I learned over time that yes, it's very easy to ask Swami for that grace. Swami, give me bhakti. Swami, cancel my karma. Swami, give me shraddha. Swami. Now, brothers, sisters, to honor the memory of that Sai, who is the most splendid incarnation of God that you and I had this opportunity to meet, to encounter, to learn and to live with, you and I should feel empowered. You and I should not just be, we are not beggars in Sai's kingdom. We are the ones whom he has bestowed. We are not beggars. We are the ones, all of us, you and me, are the ones whom he has bestowed with his grace. So we should not feel disempowered. Rather, we should feel greatly empowered. And I'll tell you, one day in Kodaikanal, Professor Anil Kumar was standing next to Swami, and they were taking a picture one Swami on one side of Swami's beautiful Benz car and Anil Kumar on the other side. And Swami did this, leaning on the hood of the car. And Swami said, he was standing like this, Anil Kumar, Professor Anil Kumar. And Swami went around all the way to him and said, atle chekodu, don't do like this. You do what Swami is doing. Don't fold your hands. So he said, Swami, how can I do like this? And Swami said, let me ask you a question. And brothers, sisters, see, these are not ordinary moments. Swami is not just having fun and taking pictures. Swami is constantly the divine teacher. He came with only that one task of uplifting us. Whether his words were casual or in discourses or while giving darshan, they all will resonate with you and uplift you. So he told Professor Anil Kumar, what would be your response if I tell you, buy my car, buy this car? Excuse me. And Professor Anil Kumar said, Ayo Papam Swami, that is such a bad thought. How can I even think of buying this car? And you know what Swami's response was? That is what I think I want to start with today. Swami said, that is not good. Anil Kumar, that's not the answer I expected from you. You should say to Swami, excuse me, you should say to Swami Anil Kumar that Swami, Why this car? With your grace, I can buy the whole world. I can achieve anything. And look at these few sentences that Swami has shared. So everything that he said, which you and I access on the internet through YouTube, let us not just watch it like a fleeting movie and it's over. Every word of Sai, every direction that he gave us is important, and it is his blessing. It is packed with the presence of God. It's not just simple words. And that is why Swami never tried to speak fancy words. In the simplest of words, he communicated the most powerful Vedantic teaching. And what is that? Self-confidence you and I should have, even if we don't know who we were in past births. But the fact that Sai, this divine magnet, this tremendous force, this force which is not like other forces which implies, a brute force. He is not that type of force. But for lack of a better word, we use the word force. But it's important to realize that that force is rooted in our source. That is our source. And this is how Swami taught. So I want to begin by imploring you, by requesting you to feel empowered, not to feel dismal, not to feel fearful. What else can happen to us that is higher, that is better, that is more prayed for, that is a bigger blessing than the fact that you didn't just see his picture, you didn't just read a book of Howard Murphy or Hislop or Samuel Sai. No, you didn't just stop there. You were attracted to Sai. You and I were felt like changing our lives. We put our children in SSC. We may have attended SSC. You and I should feel greatly empowered because so far in our lives, he has been there. He has been an integrated part of our lives. What else can make us happy? And with this memory, with this fact being uppermost in our minds, brothers and sisters, the true divinity, the true power of that divinity will be able to sprout and come forth. So with that, I want to bow to Swami's feet. As you can see in this picture, when he at the age of 14 sat on that rock in Urvakonda, that when people denied him, decried him, and even his own family was surprised and aghast at what he was doing. They thought he's possessed by a ghost. And he sang nonetheless, unperturbed, sure about his work, sure about his own divinity. And he sang Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam. That should inspire us, that should awaken us to think that Dhyana Moolam Guru Murti, Puja Moolam Gurur Padam, Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam, Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa. That is what we are trying to do. These sessions, whether these or other sessions, which are our own puja, our own prayer, this is the goal. The form of the Lord, the Guru Murti in the line 1, is worthy of our dhyan, of our meditation. What is dhyan? What is meditation? It is the peak. It is not just concentration. The concentration that you and I put when we learnt ABCD, when we learnt calculus, when we watch the election night debate, that is nothing. That, Swami said, is below the mind. Dhyana Moolam Guru Murti. You and I, now as we sit here, our dhyan, that is the consummation of our whole being, has to be focused on those divine feet. Why is it that after 40 years of following Swami, we say, why are we not making spiritual progress? How will we make spiritual progress? That spiritual progress is not going to come by applying the same concentration that you apply to learning calculus or writing your PhD thesis. Reaching the one who is beyond the body and the mind requires a different approach. And the answer cannot be found in my talk or even in reading Swami's discourses. The answer lies in the cave of your heart. The answer lies in the inquiry that you alone can perform. You know, it's so funny, but I've been doing these Gita Vahini talks with our center. I was just telling Sister Lata and Brother Mohan about that, and Jignesh. And you know, I came across, see, in 1963, Swami penned the Gita Vahini. During his travels in Andhra Pradesh, he was so busy, and he wrote it and he sent it to the Sanatan Sarthi. You know what he writes about this very powerful chapter, which is so abstract, which is called Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga. He writes in that, Swami, salutations to you. He writes that I am the truth of me. I am the truth of me. Brothers, sisters, there is no need to run around like headless chicken searching for answers from different masters. Right here with our Sai, if we are prayerful, if we are not cynical, if we are not critical, and if we apply that Dhyana Moolam Guru Murti, complete focus on Swami, not just sensual, mental focus, complete focus. That is something you and I have to learn. What is that? And then Puja Moolam. This puja, as Sri Krishna has said, Ananyas Chintayam Tomam. I want you to be fully focused on me. And then Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. He is saying you don't have to go to the market and buy a $40 bouquet. Pluck a leaf, pluck a rose from your own garden, but offer it, that water, that the teardrop of your devotion is what I am waiting for. Brothers, sisters, Swami knows everything that we are feeling and we are thinking. And that is part of the challenge. You cannot relate to him. We cannot relate to him. You know, when we used to go for vacations, I used to go to Mumbai. And then I used to just, to an extent, forget the great teachings, the great upliftment that Swami had created in our hearts. And during those vacation times, our consciousness would fall. And when we used to come back from our vacations, Swami used to not look at us. And it was not just me. We are 300, 400 students. Swami would not look at us. Weeks would pass. We would pass. We would be crying. Our parents used to say, what is Swami telling you? And say, you know, Swami hasn't looked at us for weeks. And then we would gherao him. Gherao in Hindi means surround him like a mob. We used to mob him. And then he used to say, I can't hear you. And then we used to say, Swami, forgive us. He said, you know, I've got a lot of hair around me, my ears, I can't. Swami, forgive us. And then he used to say, he used to smile after weeks. And he used to say, you know, boys, Meeru Andaru mono acting chestunaru, Kapati nen monum acting chestunanu. Because you are doing mono acting, I am doing maunam acting. So all of you know the word acting, but we were doing mono acting. That is, when we were in Swami's presence, we were very careful to maintain our purity levels. We never let our eyes, our mind focus on anything worldly. But when we went into the world for those 30 days, the world got into us. Maybe we were not to blame at times, but we didn't keep that high level of purity, which is so dear to our Sai. And then he would say, you are acting, mono acting. What is mono acting? You have only one actor on the stage, and he plays multiple roles. He plays the role of the cop and the thief, right? So Swami was telling us, you are doing mono acting, meaning you think, I am not able to see what you are doing. You think there is only one, and that Sai is not around you. God is not watching what you are doing. And brothers, sisters, you will not believe it, but Swami never ever explained to us what he meant by mono acting and monam acting. But it was so evident. It was so clear. And what is maunam acting? Maunam is an Indian practice, a Hindu practice of keeping silent as a as a austerity. So Swami said, I am keeping maunam, meaning I am silent. Okay, you want to act as if God is not watching you and you can do whatever you like, which is not aligned with my teachings, with my expectations of you. So I'm not going to do anything to you. I am just going to be silent. And that would bring us back. We would be crying because that Sai who had mesmerized us, who had changed our lives, whom we may have just forgotten momentarily, we wanted to go back to him. And as we wept for him, as we realized the importance of Sai in our hearts, in our lives, that is the type of puja we should be doing. He knows we will fail. He knows we are in the world, and he wants us just to repent. He wants us to call on him. Hey, Sai, I forgot you. Swami, I forgot you. I made this mistake for the 40th time. Swami, I hate myself for doing that. But I know that you are all loving. You are all compassionate. You are the one who transformed that Anguli Mala, that bandit. You are the one who transformed Valmiki, the thief, into the saint. Can you not forgive me yet another time, Swami? So that is the type of puja if we perform at his feet and we chant the name of the sentence that the Guru has told us. We take that as our mantra and we don't go and seek this. If we value what the Guru has told us, we just don't go around seeking multiple gurus and multiple ideas. If we can just, like Swami said, dig 100 times with the crowbar in one spot and the well will have water. But if you dig 5 times in one spot, 5 times in another spot, you will just land up making holes in the ground. So that Gurur Vakyam, what Swami said, what did Swami say? He said, Papa Bhiti, Daiva Priti, Sanghaniti. So simple. Have fear of sin, Papa Bhiti. Have love for God, Daiva Priti. We love everything else. We love good cars, we love good sights, we want to go for leisure to the Yellowstone National Park, we want to go to the beach. How about having love for God? Then how are we going to make that spiritual progress? How are we going to find that deep spring of joy that is within us waiting to be discovered? And like Swami said, I am the truth of me. What a beautiful, wonderful statement he said. So take that Guru Vakyam, meditate on it. That should become our mantra. And then brothers, sisters, that Guru Kripa, like Swami said, his Abhayasta he would give. And he used to say, with my grace, the impact, the negative influence of the 9 planets can be taken away by my blessing. So though our karmas may be bad, in our past lives, don't know what sins we may have committed, but all that you don't need to worry. If you pine, if you yearn, if we are sincere and we obtain that Guru Kripa, then you and I will obtain moksham or liberation. So I just put together for you in this very mesmerizing slide where you can see how Swami is sitting on the jhula in Trai Vrindavan, and he is looking smilingly at us. He's waiting for us to act, and you can see the inner journey that he has taken us through, which is true of almost all of us. Is first he attracted us. In whatever way, we may have gone to him to get cured of a disease. Sometimes we may have gone to him because our parents were beating us up and said, no, I want you to come to Swami. I want you to come to Puttaparthi. Right? And we just went there. And then he attracted us. That attraction, that initial attraction turned into our attention. We started paying more attention. Something in a bhajan, something in Swami's talk, something in a project that he did caught our imagination, and it became an accompanying or associated force. Some people were not attracted to Swami's form, but they were attracted to a project or a service, or they felt that, I want to participate in this vocational training or something. And then gradually they came closer to him. And then they started accepting. By loving acceptance of Sai and his teaching, they started attaining greater and greater alignment. What does Swami want? His whole life was selfless. He wanted nothing. His whole life, he he directed his life with a single purpose: to inspire people, to elevate the level of consciousness that our minds are taking us down and down into. He tried to fight that battle for us by elevating our consciousness. And to that increasing degree of alignment that we can have, if we want it, if we seek it, if we invest in it, brothers, sisters, there is potential to get absorbed in that divine joy, to get absorbed in that wonderful, redeeming realm. You and I can live in the world, drive cars, work jobs, live in families, but be absorbed in that divine joy that Radha, Meera, the Gopikas, and others have enjoyed. So this is the journey. Many times I feel that, sometimes we are wayward. Even many of us students, even I myself was very much of a wayward child. Why? Because we probably asked Swami in some birth, in some lifetime, that Swami, please, let us be born alongside you. Let us be born in your presence. Let us meet you. And we probably asked him, Swami, please give us a promise that though we are wayward, that you will pull us, you will magnetize us, you will take us away from our worldly cares and seekings. And though we are wayward and trying to run away from you, you will hold on to us. You will try to transform us. And please sign that contract with us, Swami. Please sign that contract with us. And, unwilling as he may have been, he said, okay, because you're asking me with so much devotion, I'm signing that contract with you. And that is why, brothers and sisters, we are with him today. We have all, in whatever way we may pretend, we have all made so many mistakes. There are mistakes that only Sai may be aware of. I'll tell you how much I appreciate the Sai devotee community. It is so unique. If you read Dinah Baskin's books, Dinah Baskins is no more. She was a wonderful, great devotee from California. And she knew Swami from the 60s. Swami got her married to the Rainbow Man, and then he got her remarried later. All through her life, she had great love for the physical form of Swami. But in that book, she wrote Divine Memories of Satya Sai Baba, and then she wrote a second book. And in that second book, she writes that during the 75th birthday, when Swami was celebrating his 75th birthday, there were great ministers, governors vying to be in Swami's presence. Literally hundreds of thousands of devotees had come from all over the world. Swami was in the private interview room talking with Dinah Baskins, and he was counseling her. He was he was censuring her. He was counseling her and trying to come out of the smoking habit. Can you believe it? But let's not be surprised that she continued to have this bad habit so many years after being with Swami. But see, rather marvel at how Swami never left her. Swami never said, hey, you are not qualified to be with me. He kept on working with all the individuals despite their failings. And that reminds me that as we chant the 108 names of Swami, what is the last name? I want you to all take to your chat windows and let me ask you this quiz. Let's see if you are a little bit active. I'm sorry it was a monologue so far. But what is the penultimate name in the 108 names? Ah, beautiful, Brother Mohan, fantastic. Sulabha Prasannaya Namah. You know, every day, every night before we go to bed, me and my two boys, we chant this. And sometimes I try to explain to them. And I myself marvel that Swami, thank you for putting it as the 107th name. Because as I chanted these 106 names up until this name, many times my mind strayed. And I forgot that I'm chanting 108 names and I should be fully focused. It hardly takes 7-8 minutes, but I'm not able to fully focus on you. So, what does this name mean? Anybody else can translate it and tell me why this name is so important? Translate it and also tell me why this is so important for us and how this relates to what I told you about Dinah Baskins. Yes, he is the one who is easily pleased. But how does it relate to what I told you about Dinah Baskins? Okay. Yes. What else? So Dinah Baskins, Swami was working with this great, well-known devotee who had published books on Swami, who had seen amazing miracles. You know, one of the miracles she had seen was she was living in Swami's house. She saw Swami coming down from the steps, hobbling down the steps. And she asked him, Swami, what happened to you? You're not able to walk. And Swami said, you won't believe it, Dinah, but in the Himalayas, many of the yogis who heard about me, this was in the 60s, they said that this cannot be the avatar and we will test him. And they used their yogic shaktis and they aimed them at me and they tried to cripple my body to test whether I'm really the avatar. And nobody could have even survived the impact of their yogic shakti. And in no time, this will go, and then he takes water and sprinkles it and he starts walking. This type of great miracles, which many of us haven't even read about, this is the type of direct first-hand experience Dinah had. And yes, now I see some of the answers coming up. So Sai, our Sri Satya Sai Baba, is forgiving. He knows all our innermost faults. He knows not only the faults that we have expressed, he also knows the tendencies in our personalities, how they are. But leaving all that aside, he has decided to call us to his lotus feet. You know, when I joined, I had this great urge to join Swami's college. And I'll show you that, you know, I was a boy, a Mumbai boy, a typical Mumbai boy. And I was in a lot of bad company. Already in my 7th grade, I was starting to do so many negative things. And as soon as I joined the SSC classes, there were 2 Sai students from Vrindavan who lived close by. And I became very friendly with them. And slowly this desire came in me to join Swami's college. And I confided in my mother. I made changes to my life because the SSC gurus were telling me about things which were not how I was living my life. I was in really bad company in my school. And the moment I made those inner resolutions, the telephone rang, and it was none other than Sri Indulal Shah, who was the convener of the whole World Satya Sai Council. And he knew my mother well. He asked my mother that Swami is going to visit Mumbai in a few days. Is your son willing to talk about his experience as a Bal Vikas, as a SSC student? So brothers, sisters, this great opportunity that I got, which you're seeing in the form of these 2 pictures, you know, tells the story of how Swami is just waiting to respond to us. The moment you and I, and this was at the peak of adolescence, I was in bad company. But with Swami's grace, my SSC gurus had sown the seed of good thoughts, good ideas in my mind. And I got this opportunity to garland Bhagwan. And as I touch his feet and got this opportunity to speak in front of him, then he materialized Vibhuti for me. And as I sat at his side, he rubbed my spine several times. And that is where he gave me permission to come and join his college. And that is how my sweet journey started with Bhagwan. But the moment I joined Swami's college, and I'm taking you back to this Sulabha Prasannaya Namaha, as I joined Swami's college, I realized that Swami, the way the Sai students are living such a wonderful life, praying before every meal, participating in social work every Saturday, Sunday, attending your darshan, doing bhajan every evening, singing with fervor, worshipping you, listening to good talks, every class, whether we were studying science or math or physics or English, would start with our lecturers praying to Swami. They would tell us inspiring anecdotes. They would tell us how they had been transformed. And in my first week, when I came back to the hostel, I started writing confession letters to Swami and I posted them to Swami. And I said, Swami, I've committed so many sins already just in these 16 years of my life. And I don't want to keep any secret from you. You are my indweller. Just as Dinah Baskins, Swami was working with her in the interview room. Swami didn't care that, yes, there are so many thousands of people waiting for my darshan. I have to perfect this one individual whom I have invested in. That is how Swami's focus on Dinah Baskin's smoking habit was. And go and read that chapter. It is truly inspiring how Swami, through a combination of physical and spiritual means, transformed her and got her to, dump that habit, released her from that habit. So, brothers, sisters, it is never too late. This journey of ours with Swami is not about quantity. From childhood, we have been taught, achieve more, achieve bigger. And like Swami used to tell Dr. Jivanandam, many of you may know him. He used to come, he's a great surgeon from Chicago. Even last month, he was awarded many awards for conducting the highest number of heart transplants last month. He used to come to Swami. Swami used to joke. He used to tell me, go and call that doctor who looks like a basketball player, Swami used to say. Swami said, how did you operate? You're so tall. And he's like, really looks like a basketball player. And that's how Swami used to joke and say, Pora, I'm Pilskundra, go and call him. I'm a basketball player, USA basketball player. And I knew, that doctor that Swami is referring to is Dr. Jivanandam. So Swami used to tell in a group of doctors during the first International Cardiac Symposium that we held in Puttaparthi, where I was part of the organizing team. I used to work in Swami's hospital. Swami spoke with so many great famous surgeons who were there and told them, great doctor, great doctor, great doctor. And when he looked at Dr. Jivanandam, he told him, much to Dr. Jivanandam's disappointment, he said, good doctor. And this is how we are so mind driven. And Dr. Jivanandam has written that I was so disappointed. Swami called all these other famous surgeons as great doctors, but he didn't think that I am great. And he called me good doctor. But he only had to wait for the end of that interview. And Swami, as he gave his discourse, explained why to Swami being good matters more than being great. And Swami said, great people are those who look for external validations, but good people are those who work with their conscience, who are driven to satisfy their conscience. Wouldn't you want to be treated by a surgeon who is driven by his conscience, who is striving to achieve perfection as the conscience demands it, rather than looking for external validations. And at the end of that interview, all the other surgeons were downcast and feeling bad. Initially they had been so elevated that Swami had called him great doctor. After Swami had explained why he thinks that a good doctor, being a good doctor is more important than being a great doctor, Dr. Jivanandam was the only one feeling great, while all these other great surgeons were looking down because they had realized Swami was not trying to embarrass them. Swami was trying to teach them these value systems that we have forgotten, that we have thrown aside. So coming back to what I was sharing, that Sulabha Prasannaya Namaha. We bow to that Sai. We thank you, Lord Sai, because you chose to be easy to please, right? You chose that you will not make it difficult for people in the Kali Yuga. Just by calling your name, we will become dear to you. And in this picture, you can see how Swami is so much involved in the care, in the inspiration, in the concern for the individual. Look at how Swami is tying the headband for the dancer in the Satyasai hostel. Our lecturers, Sai Surendranath and Satish Babu, are looking on here, right? And they are probably feeling scared that, Are, should we have not done a better job of tying the headband of that student? But look at Swami. He is all of 69, 68 years old here. And when he's visiting the hostel, he's himself tying the headband. How did Swami make time for all this? He had the hospital project, the water project. He had to give interviews to inspire people. And this is the secret of Sai. So when you and I look at these pictures, let's not look at a picture. Let us stop. Let us take note. Let us marvel at what is it that was so sacred, so special, so different about Swami. Going further, I just want to give you proof of all the things that Brother Mohan said in my bio. Otherwise, you may think that he was describing somebody else. So you can see me here in the kneeling group. I was part of this beautiful experience. We played for Swami for his 60th birthday. And there are many beautiful anecdotes with this team. But I'll just tell you one quick anecdote. So one day when we were practicing, Swami came to the hostel. And, it is very difficult to march with these instruments, but we were a marching band. And we were marching, and then we were trying to play. So one day Swami came and we were relaxing because we used to practice for 15, 16 hours a day. And, there were teachers who were teaching us. So we were relaxing. And one of our students, Sai Giridhar, who you see over here with the kettle drum, here second from the right, topmost tall boy with the kettle drum, he had gone upstairs to receive a call. In those days, there was only one phone in the whole hostel. We were 400 students, and his parents had called while we were practicing. So he had gone up to receive the call, and carelessly he had left his kettle drum and the sticks that you see down here on the sand. And all of a sudden, Swami came to the hostel to watch us and see us practice. And before any of us could notice what Swami did, with a twinkle in his eye, he went towards that kettle drum and he picked up one of these sticks, which was carelessly kept over there, right? We never expected that Swami would come. Swami was giving darshan in the mandir. And all of us, ran and got together. Some of us were wearing colored clothes. And, we quickly aggregated there, combined there. And then Swami said, we have stood in a circle around Swami. And Swami said, come on, what are you waiting for? I want to hear you play. And Radha Krishna, who was Swami's driver, was there and he was telling us, come on. In case we didn't get the clue, Swami's time was precious. And if we didn't play, Swami would then leave. So now we found ourselves in a very big quandary. Sai Giridhar, who had run down hearing that there's a commotion and that Swami's car had arrived, he cut his call with his parents and he ran down. But as he picked up his kettle drum, he was not able to find the second stick, the drumstick. So he was looking all around, and because it was sand in the quadrangle, he thought maybe the stick is, got embedded in the sand. And Swami kept on looking at us all, and we could not start because, we are used to starting with a drum roll, right? There's to be a drum roll, and then you start playing your marching song. And then, very, very mischievously, because we were nonplussed, we didn't know what to do, Sai Giridhar didn't know what to do. And then Swami, none of us had seen that. Some of us had seen it. We could tell the others, right? Because we were in Swami's presence. With a twinkle, Swami brought out that kettle drum stick and he said, Idena Vetittunava, you're searching for this? And brothers, sisters, you can imagine this incident happened in the year 1985-86, but still fresh in my mind. Why? Why am I narrating this to you? You and I cannot experience the joy of the Rasalila. No way. Not even the Rasalila from the movies can touch or touch the hem of the robe of Sri Krishna. That joy, that beauty, that sacredness that the Gopikas had as they danced with their beloved Lord Krishna. It is the same sacred, sweet, inner joy that Sri Satya Sai Baba came to give us. That is the joy that he gave me. That beautiful memory that he created by hiding that stick. And he wants me to share that with you. And never think for a moment that, hey, Ravi is saying all this, but I was not there. So what? I was not there when Kasturi spent those hours with Swami in the car. I was not there when Raja Reddy was Swami's private attendant in his own room. I was not there when Sri Radhakrishna was Swami's driver. But at least I got the blessing of some small portion of Swami's grace during this lifetime. And that is how you should rejoice that yes, we are all able to share live examples of personal experiences. It is not like imagining whether Sri Krishna held the flute and turned to his left to play or to his right to play. I can tell you for a fact that Swami did this beautiful naughty incident, and this is how he played with us. This is how he inspired us to follow him. This is how he weaned us from doing mono acting, and so that we did not face Swami's mono acting. So rejoice in the value of the experiences that we as a Sai community have enjoyed. So going further, I want to show you some other pictures. And this is me as a little boy, thankful to somebody who snapped this picture. We used to go, this is on Gokulashtami. And I want you to notice a lot of things about this picture because I'm going to request you to take to your chat windows, okay? There's going to be a little bit of quiz on this picture. So I already told you a few of the things, right? I'll tell you one humorous thing and then I'm going to ask you a few questions. So we used to go to the Gokulam in August, in the month of August, when we all celebrated Gokulashtami. Swami used to wear the yellow robe, as you can see. And then Swami would come and we used to practice bringing the cows because these were Jersey cows. They were massive. And Swami, see, this is how Swami endeared himself to us. So we used to go for practice to the Gokulam. The Gokulam is the place about a kilometer away from the Prashanti Mandir, where the cows are looked after, where the cows live, and the milk from the cows is taken from there and then supplied to the ashram and to the canteen. And we used to go there to practice holding these cows because we were all city boys. We had no experience working with cows. And Swami used to come out of his concern. It is not just to endear himself to us. He used to come to the Gokulam. You know what for? His single message to all of us as he walked around the cowshed was, boys, be careful. Boys, be careful. And I want you to take to your chat windows and tell me, what was he telling us to be careful for? Can you imagine? Some of you who have experience, what do you think he was asking us to be cautious about when he came to the Gokulam and when he saw us practicing holding and managing these big cows? Let me see if some of you are able to guess or imagine. Yes, Brother Mohan, yes. That is the secret of Swami's caution. Better be careful. Yes, partly the cow's reaction to the boys, because so many, we would be like almost 75, 80 boys, and all new to the Gokulam. And some of us would go directly to the cow, and the cow would get so scared, and these cows were massive. So what would happen is they would stamp on our feet. And in fact, my own classmate who today lives in New Jersey, Deepanjan Chatterjee, was also in this band picture. Despite Swami warning us, he actually got a fracture on his foot. It was a hairline fracture, but Swami used to every day admonish him and say, where was your attention? I came specifically to the Gokulam to caution you boys, and you were not listening to me, Swami used to say. So brothers, that is the simpler message of that picture. Let me go back to that picture. And I want you all to, participate as I ask you that. Only Brother Mohan is responding, but I want some of you also to respond. So, I'll tell you one more comic thing. So the first year I went for this procession, Swami was in a hurry. So by the time he reached me and my cow, Swami gave me the banana. And you know what I did? I thought that banana is for me as prasadam. So I slipped it into my pocket. And Swami, noticing me doing that, said, hey, Dunapota, don't do that. That banana is not for you. That banana is for the cow. And then, very embarrassed, I started to feed it to the cow. But the cow would not take it from my hands. And try as I may, the cow was frothing and trying to push that banana out. So Swami, taking pity on the cow, came back, asked for the person who was accompanying him to give a fresh banana, and then fed the cow. So that's a funny incident associated with this. But now I'm going to take you to a very deep thought, very deep concept, which was talked about by none other but than Bhagwan himself, but which originated from a picture like this. So one of my classmates, he gave Swami a similar picture of his to sign, where he was holding the cow like that, and Swami was, walking around on Gokulashtami day. And brothers, sisters, I want to tell you about that interview, because the lesson from that interview, the teaching from that interview has always remained a guiding light for me personally. Swami said, be the calves of this cow. That is the caption of my slide. Be the calves of this cow. Now, Swami had this mystical habit. How can somebody be the calf of a cow? The calves are born to that cow, and that is how they are the calves of that cow, correct? But Swami had these mystical statements that he would make. And I'll tell you one more after I explain what Swami said. Swami said, the cow knows when the calf is hungry, and the cow knows that which calf belongs to it. In a shed, in a cow shed, there may be many cows and they may have many of their offspring around them. But if the wrong calf comes to that cow, then Swami himself said that the cow may kick that calf. So he said, and he abjured us, he cautioned us. He said, be the calves of this cow, which means for you and me that through our contract with Swami in some previous lifetime, we have prayed that we be matched with Swami, we be Swami's disciples, Swami's students, that he be our guide, that he be our guru. And then Swami said, it is dangerous to go to a different cow. If you are the calves of this cow, if you have been chosen by your own request, by your own prayer, and you are brought to the presence of Swami, don't fritter it away. Don't lose that opportunity. And not only that we may lose the opportunity, but it may even harm us if we constantly seek other masters, other guidance. And believe me, brothers, sisters, even I was doing that. For many years as a Sai student, I read the books of many different masters, and I slowly gave up reading all of those different masters because one day when I made a speech, everybody applauded in Purnachandra Auditorium. But Swami called me into the private interview room and he said, Ravi, Andaru చెప్తున్నారు చాలా బాగా మాట్లాడినారు. Everybody says that you spoke very well. కానీ ఇది నా భాష లేదు. And that hit me so hard. And I'm sharing with you because that is the personal guidance for all of us. He said, everybody said you spoke very well. Everybody applauded. But does that matter for you? No. What matters to us is, did Swami applaud us? Did Swami think that that was aligned with the message he wants to give? And he said, that was not my language. Yes, the teaching is the same, but that was not what I want to teach the Sai devotees. That was not my language. And that sufficed for me. And then I stopped reading other masters. Even now that I have done 12 sessions of the Gita Vahini for my own center, some of those are available on YouTube. I have stayed away from the temptation of seeking other masters' commentary on the Gita. I have taken the verse and the Sanskrit meaning from other sites, but I have stuck to Swami's discourses. I have stuck even when it has been difficult. I have prayed to Swami. The guidance has also come. So, brothers, sisters, this is an important lesson. There are very humorous aspects about this picture, but the most significant learning here is that you and I, who have been selected by Swami, who have been called from different corners of the globe to become his devotees and disciples, let us not trivialize that opportunity. Let us not say, oh yeah, that was something. Let us remember that. Let us refresh that. Right there in those interactions with Swami, there is enough material to practice. There is enough guidance for a lifetime. Just seeking more guidance, different guidance, more talks, more explanations is not going to help us. Let's go deeper with the Sai. And like Swami said, the cow knows when the calf is hungry. That is the unique connection between the calf and the cow. If you feel left out, if you feel spiritually orphaned, go to your puja room, watch a video of Swami, cry to Swami, just like Suguna. You know, Swami often told us the story of Suguna, who was that Gopika, who felt so unfortunate that I was not there in Vrindavan, in Gokul, when Sri Krishna was dancing with the Gopikas. She gets married and comes to Gokul after Krishna has left Gokul and gone away. And then one day, because she's yearning for that proximity with Sri Krishna, with Balkrishna. When she's lighting the torch in the house of Mother Yashoda, she has a vision of Sri Krishna. And at that time, the torch burns her skin. But then all the gopikas sing, and Swami has sung this song many times. Mana sugunaku kanapinche danta, Nanduni inta. So that is the type of relationship we have with Swami. Even today, if we are sincere, if we are prayerful, how can you have to believe this has happened to me? Swami comes in numerous dreams. He makes himself available. So don't drift away from Swami was the lesson for me in that slide that I showed you. Then going further, I want to talk about some of the wonderful experiences I had with Swami, which are meaningful for us. So I understand your question. I see there's a question that Sister Anita is asking. Isn't our loving Swami present in all? So isn't everyone his calves, whether they know it or not? Absolutely, absolutely. But the calf is born to a cow. We cannot deny that. So for us, we are the calves of the Sai Avatar. Up until the Sai Avatar left his physical sojourn, we were not sure who were the called ones. But today, you and I have no doubt that we were all the blessed ones. And why do we talk about this blessing? Because with that blessing comes a responsibility. So if you and I say that we are the calves of this cow, it is not only a fun fact, it should also make us responsible and accountable. That yes, if we are the calves of the Sai Avatar, we have a responsibility that we will not graze on the grass that is growing in the jungle. We'll graze on the pure grass. We will grow in Sai's image. And as Sai was the message for the world, we will become the messengers of Sai, and we will reflect his message by being completely aligned with him. So with that, I'll show you some fun pictures about how during Kodaikanal, you can see these pictures. So this is the, let me just go to this picture. This is, Swami used to give us a little bit of money in Kodaikanal and then send us to the market. So people bought different gifts for their mothers, for their sisters, and you can see he blessed us by taking those gifts and wearing them and then returning them. So imagine when the mother of that student or the sister of that student wore that little ornamental piece, how delighted she would feel, right? And that is our Sai. He didn't come to, he worked with every individual. See how he's giving time to that. And then on the left, you can see how we are literally physically overwhelming Swami. We are all around him. This is a materialization Swami is making in the bus. And see how we are all, you can only see the two boys who are above him, but you cannot see in this image that there are like 9 boys under Swami. Swami sitting on the seat, to his left, to his right, but sitting on the floor of the bus, there are so many boys. And this is the place where the steps are to go down to the door. Even on the steps, there were 3 boys sitting. So this is how Swami allowed us that proximity, and he worked with us, tolerating us, keeping us close, just like Ram kept the Vanaras, the monkeys, close to him. And then in this picture, you can see how Swami is eating corn. So every time before his meal, Swami would take a little bit of shelled corn, and with the spoon, he would not put the spoon into his mouth, but he would literally toss the corn pieces into his mouth. So we had that beautiful opportunity to see all these things firsthand. And then this is a image of one of you asked me this question, that what are some of the learnings that you had? So I think it's time to talk to you about some of those learnings. And this is another picture, which, I studied at Swami's in Swami's college from 1982 to 1989. And then I did my MBA from 89 to 91. And during the time I was doing my MBA, Swami, towards the close of my MBA, Swami asked me whether I would like to join his hospital. And in 1990, in November, Swami announced that I'm going to set up this hospital, and that he made an announcement that 1 year from that date, he made a promise, not just an announcement, that he would make another announcement 1 year from that date, where he would tell the world that cardiac surgery had been completed and that a running hospital had been set up. Now there were different reactions to that. Even people who were very close to Swami were murmuring in disbelief, because brothers, sisters, Puttaparthi, especially in the 90s, and even India in general, cardiac surgery was to be found only in the large cities. There were not more than 6 large cities with about 4 to 5 big cardiac centers where cardiac surgery was even available. And people were murmuring in disbelief, because they said now Swami can set up a free college and he can bring professors and laboratories there and he can build a library. What is there in that? But it's impossible to have uninterrupted power supply, uninterrupted water supply, uninterrupted clinician supply, right? You need so many different types of clinical people and non-clinical staff. Where are they going to come from? Even the land for the hospital had not been bought. That's a separate story. Brother Mohan has to invite me once again to narrate to you the wonder of how Swami's hospital came up, sprung up, I would say. It was sheer divine will and his instruments making it happen. But that's for another conversation. But I want to tell you that while doing my MBA, all of a sudden, I, who wanted to spend my time at Swami's feet, suddenly started having grandiose visions of going out into the world and living a commercial life. And, and when Swami asked me, and this is how Swami puts our value systems to test. All through, I had said that I want to dedicate my life to Swami. And at that time, I had started to think otherwise. Then Swami asked me, are you willing to work in my hospital? And I hesitated. And brothers, sisters, that is so important. That is so important. What we have all invested years and years of our time. And what is sadhana? You know, what is sadhana? I was just listening before our talk, Swami talking to the Westerners in 1991. And Swami actually says this, that you all sit erect like this and do japa and dhyana. And Swami says, I don't like, because you sit erect as if this is a photo opportunity, but your mind is jumping from California to Chennai, Swami said. And brothers, sisters, that is the secret of spiritual progress. Whatever you and I believe in, whatever sadhana we are doing, when the time comes to pass the exam and to grow, that growth opportunity, that evolution opportunity, we cannot afford to lose it. And that is my learning that I had. For all those years as a SSC student, my transformation that came around me, I got that speaking opportunity with Swami. I got the opportunity to work, to study at Swami's college for no less than 9 years. And then here was I, not able to apply that foundational learning to building the structure on top of that foundation. And then none other than the avatar himself was asking me to join his mission. I was hesitant. And just like Dinah Baskins confessed that on 75th birthday, Swami was not teaching her how to, get self-realization, but still working at the basics. This is how I am confessing to you that Swami, after my 9 years as a Sai student, had to still teach me, guide me, command me. And then finally, he sent word to me during college hours with Professor Nanjundaya. And he said, go and ask Ravi that is he or is he not? Now it had come to a head that there was no more time sitting on the fence. Yes or no? You cannot equivocate anymore. And when Professor Nanjundaya came in the middle of my classes, I knew this was not something Professor Nanjundaya was doing on his own. He was the past translator of Swami. He was a very veteran person, very devoted soul. And that evening when I went to the mandir, I was not prepared for what awaited me. Everything was silent. And Mr. Khayal Das, who was his attendant, looked at me coming there and said, Ravi, Swami is waiting for you inside. And that's when I broke into a sweat, because now it all fell in place. That earlier in the day, Professor Nanjundaya had come to me, pulled me out from a class during my classes. And now I knew that this was decision time. And brothers, sisters, when I went into that interview room, Swami was sitting and he got up and he said, Kya da Mari, kya socha? He used to call me Mari lovingly, my long surname, right? So it's not only in the US that, long names are reduced to Raj or, shorter names, right? Even Swami played like that, and instead of saying Mariwalla, he said, Mari, kya da Mari, kya socha? Brothers, sisters, what I want to tell you is, Swami is not even today going to force us into doing things. So if you and I think that Swami will come and tell me, do this, give up the world. No, wrong number. That's not going to happen. Swami is the type of master who has given us his teaching. We only talk about democracy and free will, but Swami practices it. He teaches us. He shows you exemplary, he shows you how he lives that. But then you and I have to make that choice. Swami is never going to come and say, do this. It is when you want to do it, his blessings are there. And I'll tell you what happened. He said, Kya da Mari, kya socha? What have you thought? He's still leaving it to me. He had a hold on me. He could have easily demanded it from me. But then I prayed to Swami and I said, Swami, I need your guidance. And then he gave his guidance. And he said, Hamara agya hai. This is good for you, good for your family, good for the world. And brothers, sisters, all my tension, all my stress, all that fell off. All my useless imaginary ideas of leading a commercial life, being out there in the world, going out as a big manager, just because I had done an MBA course, I dropped all those. I just let those fall off from me, that Maya, that delusion, that I just let it go, and I dived at Swami's feet. And I said, Swami, there's no looking back. And with his grace, I was able to, I won't say that I worked at his hospital. I enjoyed being one of the first employees of that temple of healing. One day in Kodaikanal, why does Swami ask us to do these things? One day in Kodaikanal, he materialized a necklace for Selvi Das. She was a very venerated person. She was the vice chancellor of the Mysore University. And that evening, after giving her that materialized necklace, she drove down. Her driver was driving her car. She was going down the hairpin bends to go down from Kodaikanal. And at that moment, we had finished dinner. We were sitting with Swami. This is first hand, brothers, sisters. And Swami, all of a sudden, he slumped like this. And we had only read in the books that Swami used to go into the trance, in the 50s and the 60s. But we were all silent. And then after a few seconds, Swami came out of that slump And then he spoke to us for a few minutes, but he was very withdrawn. And then he walked up to his bedroom and we followed him. We would go into the landing outside Swami's bedroom. Swami retired. Next morning, he came out and he said, Dunapotulu, you are all he buffaloes. None of you observed that I have slumped, I went into a trance. And so we all shouted, Swami, we observed it, but we wanted to leave it private. And we didn't want to ask you. We didn't want to trouble you. He said, Aim trouble, Ra. You are with me 9 hours. What bigger trouble can be there? Then he went on to explain. He said, when Selvidas's car was going down those hairpin bends, a truck, not seeing those, unable to see the headlights, came on the other side of the road and Selvidas shouted Sai Ram and I went to rescue her. That's why my body slumped at that very moment. And in a couple of hours, we received a telegram from Selvidas right there to Swami, and Swami showed us the telegram saying, Bhagwan, innumerable pranams and grateful thanks for saving me from the accident with the truck. This is what she had written. And here was Swami couple of hours before the telegram and 12 hours before the narration. That is, at the moment of the incident, Swami told us what had happened. And brothers, sisters, I'm not making this up. This is recorded in my Kodai diary. I have written it down. And then I myself ventured to ask Swami, Swami, but what happens at this moment when you go to help devotees who are in trouble? And Swami said, the objects that I have given them flash before me and I rush to their side. And I had the temerity, the fearlessness to ask Swami, Swami, what happens if we don't have objects that you have materialized? Swami said, it doesn't matter. If I have given them an object, it flashes. But even if they are not having an object that I have given them, when they call on me, or when an incident of this nature is happening to them, I rush to their side. And then what do? These are Swami's own words. I weigh the balance of their good karma and what they have done for me. And I use that, however small it is, to banish, to remove, to eradicate, to minimize, to eliminate the negative consequences that are facing them. And then he looked at me and he said, Dunapota, that is why I'm constantly asking you boys, do this for me, bring me that basket, clean this room. These small activities that I ask you to do, I use it, I multiply it manyfold and deploy it to help you, to redeem you, to save you from evil consequences that will arise from your own past karma. And then he said, do you think when Draupadi, when Sri Krishna was eating sugarcane, do you think he hurt his little finger by eating sugarcane? Not at all. On purpose. On purpose. Sri Krishna hurt his little finger with the piece of sugarcane and made it bleed, knowing that Rukmini will run inside and knowing that Draupadi, who is in his presence, due to the love that Draupadi bears for Krishna, she will tear a piece of her sari and give it to me. Swami said, knowing all this, Krishna enacted this drama so that when she tore the piece of her sari and gave it to Krishna and he stopped the bleeding in his finger, he got that little act of love and dedication that Draupadi did, so that knowing the future that Draupadi was going to face in dishonoring, in facing the dishonor in the public court, Krishna, unable to see that such an event would happen to his devotee, years later enacted this drama. Brothers, sisters, the Sai Avatar came not for others, but for you and me. And you and I cannot trivialize it and run to other gurus, run to other masters. I feel that I'm being impure, that I'm being disloyal if I cannot find my spiritual teaching from Sai. He gave us everything. And then he told us, Dunapota, that is why I ask you guys to do some work for me. And when I look back, that is why seeing my hesitation to join the hospital, he said, Arey, this guy is a wayward kid. Today he says something, he says, I'm very devoted to you. Tomorrow he forgets about me. Okay, doesn't matter, but he is my own. Swami said, this guy is my own. I will not let him go away because once he leaves me, he will lose that opportunity. So he tried to help me, but it depends on how I take it. If I'm cynical, if in every way, whatever the good that the Sai Avatar did, but I can see only bad, then I am lost, isn't it? But today, when I look back, that temple of healing, that hospital, which even Sai trust members were not able to believe that it will happen, I had the opportunity to be one of the foundational people who assisted in making that happen. And for 14 years, Swami called me from the interview room one day and gave me a little recorder. And he said, Poi matladu, patients to matladu. And I conducted more than 200 interviews with patients. And I used to interview the doctor. And I was amazed. The nature of the disease, the poverty level of the people coming there, the type of the treatment provided, the amount of money spent, and the complete rehabilitation of society happening by this one person called Satya Sai Baba, whom nobody had approached, who nobody said, Swami, it is your job to cure all these heart disease patients. He had taken it up. And that's why, brothers, see the statement Swami made and how they apply to his own life. Swami said, duty with love is desirable. If you see a nurse or a home care giver doing his duty without love, you deplore it. So how can he not be nice to this old person? Can he not do the nursing activities properly? So you and I, even human beings, we desire, we expect duty with love. Duty has to be done with love. But duty without love, we all agree it is deplorable. But look at the Satya Sai Avatar. What did he do? I want to ask you all in the chat window, and I want Brother Mohan not to respond. Let me hear from the others. So, duty with love is desirable. Duty without love is deplorable. None of you should take to Google. Tell me from your memory, what is the third part of this? Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Love without duty is divine. So do you think Swami just made that statement so that, okay, nice three-part statement, but look at the meaning. Look at the meaning and the significance, and don't stop there. There is a call in that. There is a call to action. That is what today in management we are calling servant leadership. The leaders who sit in corner offices and drive in limousines and fly in private jets, those are not accepted anymore. The leaders are those who sign, like if you have seen Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and we should get inspired by these people. They have signed the living pledge. Warren Buffett has signed the pledge to give away 95% of his entire fortune. Isn't that wonderful? That should inspire us. We should take a cue from that. And that is what Swami is saying. Love without duty. Swami didn't have any duty to all those people who were coming there. And I don't have time in this session to tell you about the sad and heartbreaking stories that I heard from patients. But brothers, it is due to that one right action. So somebody asked me in one of the questions that when did you really start practicing Swami's teachings? Brothers, that was the turning point. Up until then, it was an infusion of love, of inspiration from Swami's side. But at that point, when I took that step and said, yes, I want to participate. Yes, it was an unknown. when the trust members could not believe that Swami's hospital will really come up, and I didn't have any clarity what I would do there. And you know, I'll tell you another thing, brothers. When you subject to Swami, when you subject to Swami, then you have to surrender to him. So somebody asked me that question, and I'll tell you, Swami explained to us that when you change, in India, we drive those cars with gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4, and gear 5, and then reverse gear. And Swami said, what is the way when you pull the gear stick, when you pull the stick, in those cars in India, the gear box will break. And I want to ask you, do you know what is the way to change the gear successfully? It's very simple answer. Let me hear you. If any of you still know or drive a manual transmission car, clutch, fantastic. Yes, you got to press the clutch. What does the clutch do? The clutch smoothens the shifting of the gear from low to high or high to low. And look at Bhagwan. Who can be a better teacher? What a wonderful master we got. And he said, when that clutch is, when you go from a moment of pleasure and you know you're going into a situation of pain or less joy, at that time, Swami said, you should say, Idi kuda na manchi kosame. If you really believe that the Sai avatar is with you, in you, around you, in you, then how can we reject anything that is happening to us? True faith, true surrender is as you go from pain to pleasure. It's very easy to say, oh, Swami is with me. I'm going to buy him a $40 bouquet, as if he wants your $40 bouquet. He is the one who made those flowers. So when we are going from pain to pleasure, there is no point saying that. When I am going from pleasure to pain, remember to apply the clutch. That clutch is the purposeful, proactive acceptance. Swami, you are giving me something. Something is coming up in my life. This is for my good. These are Swami's own statements. This is published. Say, Swami, idi kuda na manchi kosame. I accept it as your prasadam. So if we want to really go to the next level, as I started by saying, we have to feel empowered. But that feeling of empowerment is not just gloating and doing well in all respects, worldly wise, and thinking that we made it. No, we want to make it. Swami is the one who should say, I think this disciple of mine has made it. And when will he say we made it? Then at every point, whatever comes in our life, we say, no, this cannot be anything but Swami's grace. That acceptance, that unwillingness to feel unhappy, and the constant striving to feel happy in every moment. That is the hallmark of a Sai devotee. So with that, I'm going to quickly move to a last few ideas that I want to share. 1 second with you, and then we will 1 second. So bringing you back to my PowerPoint, what happened to us as we saw Swami so much, as we lived around him, which we should try to bring back into our lives. Tama yatha yatha upassate sa tathaiva bhavati. As you adore the one who has attracted you, and then you started accepting him, then you aligned with him. See this beautiful picture, such a high resolution picture. Look at the detail there. See how Swami is demonstrating to us that if we are able to imprint him on our hearts, we got everything from him. We felt that upliftment in his presence. Don't imagine, brothers, sisters, that you spent so many thousands of dollars and went into his presence just because there was something unknown. It is a known thing that you were feeling. He in Puttaparthi was helping you put apart the I. That is what Puttaparthi is. It was the repetitive joy that we were seeking, that we experienced in his presence, that our ego, our mind was at put to rest, but that was something that he did for us. And you know, there is a beautiful incident of Dr. Hislop, that one day when he landed in New York and he had his flight to California, he landed in New York from India. All of a sudden, he couldn't believe his own eyes. He started seeing Swami around each individual in the airport. And Dr. John Hislop was very worried because he thought that he is hallucinating. So as he got into the plane, then into the next flight, and he landed in California, he went home. First, he saw it in the airport behind unknown people. He saw this head and shoulders of Bhagwan. And then he saw it at home. He saw it in the Sai Center. And this experience continued for 3 long years. And brothers, I'm not just making this up on the fly. Because I lived in Swami's presence, I read a copy of My Baba and I, written by John Hislop, and I marveled. I used to see Dr. John Hislop sitting near me in the veranda. And I used to think, oh my God, this is that great Sai devotee whom, you know, in conversations with Hislop, the book is somewhere here, Swami told John Hislop, you know, Hislop, Swami has not said this about anybody. Even people whom you and I regard as saints, Swami has said they were not saints. They were ordinary people. They were just doing a stunt, he used to say. But to Dr. John Hislop, Swami said, you know, John, you're so great, you could have started your own ashram. Imagine Swami giving somebody that recognition. That is very difficult to get. And this great experience happened to him. And after 3 years, when this experience subsided, he booked his flights to Swami. And he went to Swami, and Swami was in the bhajan hall, and he went and sat there. Swami came out of the bhajan hall and said, what happened, Hislop? You came all of a sudden. And Hislop says to Swami, whispers to Swami, Swami, that experience that you gave me, where I was able to see you behind every individual for 3 years. Swami, that experience has now subsided. And you know, Bhagwan, that's our great Bhagwan. Nothing can surprise him. He is the prime mover of everything. And Swami says, of course, Hislop, all experiences are passing. All phenomenon will come to an end. These are the words that Hislop has written in the conversations. Hislop, all phenomenon will come to an end. And then he drops the bombshell. He says, now cultivate that experience, which means, brothers, sisters, you and I were transported by the Sai experience. You and I got glimpses of that enormous cosmic entity who graced us, who tolerated us, who accepted our wayward ways, who blessed us, who continued to work with us. And whatever mischief we did, he said, no, it's okay. Come on, I'll take you. Brothers, sisters, it's not over. We haven't yet reached the summit. And you know, like Swami told Dr. John Hislop, he said that my plane is taxiing. The plane of the Sai avatar is getting ready to take off. And that what that means is that the golden age that Swami spoke of is not necessarily in the worldly sense. The golden age is the higher consciousness, that Sri Krishna created, when for centuries, not just the Gopikas, Uddhava, Radha, Rukmini, Arjuna were inspired, not just Bhishma, who was much older than Krishna, bowed at his feet, not just there. It was Tukaram, it was the Alvars, it was Jayadeva, it was Meera, it was countless individuals who the Krishna consciousness inspired. Even Einstein and Mahatma Gandhi have said about the Gita that it changed the course of their life. That started 5,200 years ago. And in the same way, don't imagine that the mission of the Sai Avatar is over. It has just begun. But you and I are so fortunate that centuries from now, people will talk about you and me, who are otherwise ordinary souls, but we had this opportunity to see firsthand, to partake that sweetness firsthand. You and me, doesn't have to be a report. It doesn't have to be a video which you are not able to place. When I see those pictures, I know, oh, I was sitting there. This was the place I had darshan. For you and me, this was a real experience. And it is our duty to feel responsible, but to feel empowered, to feel that we have a role to play in that Sai mission. And that role is not external. That role is not making an impact, as Swami said, that they are great surgeons. That role is in touching other individuals, in sharing the compassion that we saw in Sai in a small way. Then it is not big things that matter. It is the small things that are missing. And I will show you a couple of the slides that have always inspired me. And then, maybe we can take time for one or two questions. But I just want to, as I show you some of these slides, I'll just run through them and land on the one that I want to show you. This is Swami, showing us his new car. See the joy with which he is walking us around it. And, he told Radha Krishna, it's becoming dark. We had come from Puttaparthi. Said, it's becoming dark, bring it out. And then one of us, stumbled near the car. And Swami said, hey, don't scratch my new car. See, that is how he, not that a scratch mattered to him, but that's how he related to us. And he made these experiences real. Look at the passion with which he's walking us through different features of the car. This is a honor he gave me. You see, I'm in my scrubs. Somebody asked me this question about how I worked as a perfusionist. He sent us to New Delhi to train. And through the ability to do perfusion, I was able to serve Swami. This is like a golf cart. I'm driving for Swami. And this is a picture at his side in Kodaikanal. Look at how he allowed us to hold his elbow. And, such a beautiful memory for us. And I just want to say that just because Satya Sai Baba played different roles, one day he looked at one of our professor's hands, and that professor knew palmistry. And he said, Swami gave him his hand and said, read my palm. And he started really studying Swami's palm. And then Swami's palm went blank. And then then he realized that how can he read Swami's palm? In the same way, brothers, sisters, just because Swami wrote a commentary on the Gita Vahini, just because he taught the Bhaja Govindam, just because he did Narayan Seva, or he played the jazz drums, or he materialized Vibhuti, let us not limit him to being an astrologer or a commentator on a scripture. He's far greater than that. He takes on these roles so that he can be close to us. He guides us in the playing of the band or the making of a speech or the singing of a song only because Sai wants to be close to us. He wants to remember us. He doesn't want to be like the cosmic God whom we can't understand. And brothers, sisters, when Sri Krishna there is a chapter, the second 6 verses of the Gita are called Bhakti Yoga. The first 6 are considered to be all about karma. The second 6 are all about bhakti. The last 6 are all about jnana. And during those 6 chapters, when he speaks about bhakti, he first talks about his vibhutis. Who is he amongst elephants? He is Gajendra. Amongst birds, he is the peacock. Among nations, he is Bharata. Among rishis, he is this rishi. And then he gives Sri Arjuna Vishwarup Darshan, that cosmic form. But I just want to share with you this thought. After giving Arjuna the cosmic darshan, where he sees the planets, the black holes, the universes being born and dying, then he brings himself down to the fourfold form of Sri Vishnu, and he shows him, the Shankha Chakra, the 4 arms of Lord Vishnu lying in the Kshirosagar, the ocean of milk. And then finally, this is the icing on the cake. He reverts back to his old form, the form that Arjuna has so many times been familiar with and mistaken for a human being. And brothers, sisters, this is the most important thing I want to share with you. When he takes the blue form as Sri Krishna, that is the time he tells Arjuna, forget. These are verses in the Gita. Don't think that I'm making it up. He says, this blue form of mine, this ordinary form with 2 arms, this is your release. This is your liberation. So brothers, don't hanker for all those things which are described in the Vedas and Vedanta and all. You and I got the opportunity. You got it. How you got it, what we did, we don't know. We can't understand. And don't waste time understanding that. This life is short. These moments are wonderful. Seek that which inspires. Seek that which awakens. That there is no need for anybody to tell you what awakens and what dullens, what inspires and what makes you feel low. You know that. For that, you don't need any other touchstone. That touchstone is your heart. Look within. And Swami always spoke about individual discrimination versus fundamental discrimination. You and I know what is of value, what is to be cherished, what is fleeting, what is to be denied, what is unimportant. And using that touchstone, let us seek that truth, that Satchit Ananda that Swami came to teach us, which he represented, which he lived in every moment of his life. And as we live through that, in no time, your own heart will awaken. And all that you have read outside, this is what I find happening to myself. For these 35 years, whatever I read in books was only a concept, that was only at best a guideline. Today, because of having been blessed by Bhagwan, because he held on to us. Swami used to talk about Marjala Bhakti versus Markata Bhakti. The baby monkey holds on to the mother monkey as the mother is jumping from tree to tree, from branch to branch. But we are dangerous that way. We kids, we would have fallen off. We can't hold on so tight to the Sai Avatar. So this Sai Avatar has made a big exception, has made a big concession. And what is that? Just like the mother cat holds the baby kitten. These are all Swami's own descriptions to us in the interview room. He is holding us with those teeth, those canines which tear apart the mice. It's those very canines. He is gently holding us, because as the mother cat goes from place to place, the kitten, that is us, we cannot keep pace. All we have to do is mentally remember that we are the calves of this cow, and that we should not hanker and seek 100 other things. Let us be perseverant. Let us focus on Sai, And very soon, as we go through that journey, of moving from attraction to attention to acceptance and to a greater degree of alignment, very soon we will all achieve that absorption inside. And then there is no seeking. Then we are one with Him. So with these words, I will stop and hand it over back to you. And I want to thank you for the opportunity. I may have gone here and there in my memory stream, but I hope some of it made sense to you, and you have some takeaways from this conversation.
Sai Ram. Sister Lata, please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Ram, and thank you so incredibly much. You have absolutely empowered us, like you titled your presentation. It was just an incredible experience, and I know that we could be listening to you for hours and hours more, and you mentioned at some point that if Brother Mohan should invite me again, and I hope you will accept on behalf of the entire Detroit Metro Sai Center, we would absolutely invite you anytime, at any convenience. You tell us when you have time, and we are ready to receive your blessings.
Absolutely.
Especially all the preparations, and like you said, you've learned so much preparing discourses on Gita Vahini. That would be really, truly, that would be, I think, so beneficial for all of us. And, I know it's not possible to condense, but, perhaps we could consider some kind of, a series from you.
Absolutely. Swami willing, it's all His grace. And the reason I mentioned that, sister, is in many talks, we Sai students used to talk about some miracles, this and that. And Swami, knowing that it would disrupt my trend of thought, but even then, I think it was a lesson He wanted for later years. He would interrupt me, the audience couldn't make out, but He would just mutter under His breath, say, Chal, ippudu hospital gurinchi cheppu. That is, enough. Now tell about the hospital. And we have to really do salam to Bhagwan, because brothers and sisters, in many years, people came and asked Swami, this work that you're doing is incredible. We doubted you, but this is how later on we all do namaste to Swami. But when he announced it, everybody doubted him. We students didn't doubt him because we hero worshipped him. We said, Arey, who cares? Once Swami says it will somehow happen, why should we use our limited intelligence? That is the one lesson we had learned. But then He refused advertisements. They said, Swami, should we advertise? And they said, Swami, but nobody's coming to know about your hospital. What's the use? He said, Idena meeku arthamaindi. Is this what you understood about me? That I want to do this work to make people know about it? Not at all. As long as patients know that this is the recourse for them, that I have set up a lighthouse for abandoned ships, my job is done. I don't want rich people to know that this is a place where they should put their funds. In fact, I have sat in the interview room and torn checks by people. Swami said, Chudu, a envelope lo emundi. And it was sealed envelope. And Swami would tell me the exact amount in the check on that envelope. And I used to say, wow, so much money coming for the hospital. Say, parve se say, tear it and throw it. And I used to think maybe Swami is making some error. But can our Lord make any error? He said, Naku Uddu. Atlantivi Seva Naku Uddu. I don't want such tainted money. So it's a lesson for us. In the 17th chapter, he describes that you are born with faith. Your disposition is also determined by the three gunas. And then what else is determined by the three gunas? Your the type of austerity you do, the type of charity you do, the type of sacrifices you undertake are also determined by your three guna combination. So even the type of charity that people are doing, even the Lord who doesn't want to accept that type of charity. So, and that is the beauty of the Sai people. Why these concepts, why these ideas? Because these make a difference. While we want to go beyond the body and the mind, and these concepts and ideas are still under the realm of the body and the mind, but somewhere we are touching back to that Sai who gave these concepts and thoughts. That is the redeeming thing. It is not the concepts and the words. Go to think of it, how without much documentation, 2000 years have passed, but Christianity lives on. It was not just that four disciples wrote the Bible, Luke and Matthew. That is not the thing. It is the presence. It is what divinity Christ manifested, that power. And that is why when you remember Sai's words, Sai pictures, Sai thoughts, Sai incidents, it is not those incidents, those thoughts, the word. It is Sai who is we are calling. And that is the redemption in our inner consciousness, which until some point we will not be able to see. But we have to keep going. Then after some point, it will become self-evident. But before I start one more lecture, I'm going to stop. And thank you all for having great joy participating in this.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are forever grateful. Thank you.
Om Shri Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, brother.
Sai Ram.
Thank you again from all of Detroit Sai Center members. Sai Ram.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Sai Ram.
Thank you. And yeah. Thank you, Swami, for this beautiful, wonderful satsang, Sai Ram. Just in about 30 seconds, we'll do the bhajan practice. That for now, we can take a small break, Sai Ram. And Brother Ravi, just to let you know, we will have bhajans from 4 o'clock. If you are able to participate, you are welcome, Sai Ram. And we are going to have a little bhajan practice until about 3:45 or so. And we'll have Sai Gayatri at 3:45. And then 4 o'clock, we'll have the bhajans. And you're welcome to stay.
All the best. All the best.
Sai Ram. Thank you.